Transformation Tuesdays. I am Christy Effelman, and I am your host from Edge Leadership. And today we are joined by my friend and Edge grad, Godfrey Bethea Jr., which I just learned is a junior. Godfrey went through the Edge experience. He was in the inaugural all-male cohort at his organization. How many years ago, Godfrey? 5? 4?
It was probably 5 years ago.
Hot dog, 5 years ago. So I will let you say hello to everyone. Everyone say hello to Godfrey.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello. So if you have joined us in the past, you know that each month we have a storyteller. We bring someone who has intentionally created transformation in their lives. Some of the storytellers are in my book, The Peer Revolution, and our outcomes for today are quite simple. There are two. The first is to provide a powerful platform for folks to share their stories of transformation. And the second outcome, my friends, is that guess what? If Godfrey can do it, so can you. We want to create the space to inspire you that you can also create transformation in your life, personal or professional. You know, we started these Transformation Tuesdays quite intentionally mid-pandemic because I personally was feeling like I was playing small and I was playing safe, both in my work life and in my home life. And I was seeing folks who weren't playing so small, and Godfrey is one of them. So it is my true pleasure to create this opportunity for connection between all of you and him. And I hope that you will drop a note in the chat and welcome Godfrey. Say hello, introduce yourself to him as he introduces himself to you.
Well, first I want to say thank you, Christy, for inviting me on to your Transformation on Tuesdays. I'm so excited to be part of this program with you. So my name is Godfrey Bethea Jr., and I'm a cultural transformation leader. I work currently now as the Vice President of Equity, People, and Culture with the Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank. And I've been with the food bank for about a year and a few months, and it's been tremendous. And what I do currently right now is I head up all human resource functions and our equity, diversity, inclusion functions, and ensure that we build a culture that empowers people within our organization to thrive, realize their best selves, and accomplish what they want to in their careers.
Love it. Love it. And what I will also say to all of you, if this is your first time meeting Godfrey, is that is who he is at work, and it is who he is in his personal life. Like there is, that creating space for people to be their best selves, to be in a space where they feel like they belong. I bet those of you that are tuning in and listening on both domains of his life see that to be true. So with that, my friend, I would love to create the space for you to just tell your story in your words. Take us back 5 years ago, before you started Edge, before you began this transformation in your life. What shifted and how?
Yeah, so great question. And when I first learned of the program, I just joined the organization. I was a diversity, equity, inclusion specialist with the organization, and my manager at the time wanted me to get involved with all of the programs, EDI programs that the organization was investing in, and when I joined this Edge program, and said, "Hey, you want to join this program?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll join it." And probably like most of the people that will be on this on your show will have said that they didn't know what to expect, and I'm sure I was one of them because I felt that I was just supposed to be an observer to the program, and I went through and I read the roster. I got all the information. I read the roster, and I saw they were all leaders, and I said, "Okay, this is going to be interesting. I'll see how they infuse leadership with diversity, inclusion, and I'll get some nuggets out of it, right?" So So I went through the program, how I showed up, I was confident in the work that I've done, previously. As a diversity inclusion uh, experience there, and also so those are the things that I felt confident in. I've conducted leadership training before, so I'm there. So when I went to this program, I again in this observation state, I felt that okay, I wasn't going to be able to engage much because they're going to be talking about leadership or management of experiences. But those were the conversations you had, and one of the conversations that really started my transformation in the group in the program was really talking about how we show up as men, both professionally and home. Are we the same person? Do we the values that we learn, the norms that we learn to try to be macho and not to be in touch with our emotional state? We started having that conversation, and that was it was the conversations we had typically throughout the program. Each one was really talking about emotional states, um, kind of the thought provoking where you are, how you're showing up in the space that you are. And I realized the conversations were less about managing, but more about connecting us as humans going through experiences, daily experiences. And I felt that was the first time that I can get all in. I could be all in this program because again, they're not seeing me. They're not seeing me as not being within the leadership ranks. We're all in this together and sharing our experiences, and we're learning from each other. And one thing that I've learned through that is connecting both, like you said, my work life with my home life, and identifying how I show up in each one. So um, that was the state I came in, and that's the quick turnaround going through the program early on.
Yeah, well, as you were saying that, it took me back. So I don't know if you know this, but your cohort was the very first all male cohort that I had ever facilitated. The company had come to me and said, all right, we've had all these women, all women and those identifying with femininity cohorts. And this was a year before the Me Too movement. I don't know if you remember. And they're like, what can you do for men? And I'm like, I don't know. So I came into your experience doubting myself. Could I build something? Could I deliver something that would be valuable? And as you were talking about that space of where we all leaned into vulnerability together, and when you were talking about remember that activity that we did about defining masculinity, where what was masculinity growing up? And I don't know if you remember this, Godfrey, but I will never forget the three figures that had defined masculinity for our cohort was your fathers, Rambo, and John Wayne.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
will never forget
yeah.
those three. Like that was, and we had this fascinating conversation about masculinity, what it was for us growing up, and how we choose to define it moving forward, both at work and at home.
And we got to a point where we asked the question why. Why are we
Yeah.
holding true to those three? And I remember that. And it was at that moment where we said, well, we do not always see ourselves, in those areas. I don't want to be seen as that and not being able to connect into my family. I don't want to be
Yes.
in an environment working, amongst my colleagues and be shown as that macho personality. I want to be in a state where everyone feels comfortable in the environment. So we started thinking through, like, yeah, that's how I want to be, and we started looking at each other. That's how I want to be, and that's how, right. And that was where I was like, okay, this is I think this is what's needed because we don't
Yes.
need to measure up to those personas, right? And we can lean in to the emotional states we're experiencing those days, to the support for one another that we didn't lean in on other times. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So if you were going to go back 5 years ago to your 9 months in Edge, what would you say are your top three most powerful takeaways?
Yeah, so I went through a journey, both inside that program and outside the program. So one of the things that I did, my manager at the time wanted me to go through a process of coming into her office each day and giving her a accomplishment that I had for that day. Right. This is through this program. So as I'm going through, because what I realized, I mean, I think I was having a lot of, and probably she saw a lot of self doubt, self talking, of um, not supporting my own value. And what I did a lot, what I realized is I put a lot of emphasis on my weaknesses, my weak areas, and I always try to figure out do I need more education? Do I need to get certification in order to accomplish, um, you know, or overcome those weaknesses? But as I came in every day and gave an accomplishment, I didn't want to go through the process, but I did. I started realizing all the value I was adding each day, and that mattered more than the weaknesses. I started seeing those strengths, those weaknesses, and that's at the same time in the program that we were talking about. We're talking about vulnerability. We're talking about we actually had looked at each other and gave words to what do I see in you, and they didn't know who I was, and so I was starting to see what others see in me, strengths, and those weakness areas were devalued, and I realized so that first one is confidence, building confidence in myself through the program, and then the other one was accountability, being able to realize where you have opportunity to lean on others, have people around you with other strengths, and where I feel as though that I don't have maybe the answers, or I don't have next plan of action or strategy. Others do, and we rely on others. And so being able to be accountable for myself rather than feeling as though that I had to. I mean, it's a stress reliever when you know that you can say or have the ability to say, I don't know, I don't have the answer, right? And feeling like you're not accountable to the group or the group that you're working with. So accountability came in, and purpose. We talked about our work life and our personal life, and what I realized, I try to be the same person in the work and home. I want to be that person to say you're never different, right? And I want my wife to say that, and I want my workers to say that, right? So the thing I do for my work life is I plan. I plan a lot. So I will set out a goal and say I want to accomplish A, B, and C. And I did that through some of the programs we had there. And I asked, what does it take to be awarded that award? And I was given, what you need to do, A, B, and C. I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. And I accomplished that. I
Yes,
realized
you
that I
did,
could do
Mr.
that.
Five Star.
I realized I could do the same thing in my personal life as well. Uplifting
Yeah.
others, being able to create goals with my family that align with my career, and we all move together rather than me moving individually. So confidence through building up my focusing on my strengths, accountability, leaning on others, uplifting others, and driving purpose not only in personal life but in my family life.
Love that. Love that. And as I was listening to you, what came up for me, and I love that your leader was like, all right, I want to hear your successes, especially as a new, folks tuning in. Godfrey started his Edge cohort right as he started his career at his organization. So he was brand spanking new, right? So he's meeting this network of, amazing leaders in the organization. And I think that's a great best practice in onboarding, for any of us in our organizations, when we're onboarding someone new, to ask them, what's something you're proud of? What's a success you can share with me? Because when we're new at something, when we are a beginner, how often we fall back to what are our opportunities? What are our weaknesses? Where are we not good enough? Where do I have gaps where I don't know how to do this? It happens all the time when we are new. So I love that she was doing that. And, what goes along with that sharing successes, that's what we were doing in Edge, sharing our successes, sharing our challenges every month. And as you said it so beautifully, giving ourselves permission to ask each other for help. And when we do that, it creates this beautiful web of accountability.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was the transformation. That's what it was really about. And when I learned to ask and others for
Yes.
feedback or go through this coaching process, I saw the dedication and support for me that I've never seen ever. Right, and accountability was they called me afterwards after the program and said, Godfrey, how are you doing
That's
with
right.
that one challenge you had? I just want to check in on you, and I've never had that before. So that those are experiences that I've taken away and that live with me from until this day.
So yeah, 5 years later, still going on. And there are two skill sets in there that I really want to call out that Godfrey just shared, folks. There's peer mentoring, and then there's peer coaching. Right. So the mentoring is that space of, and we all need this in our lives to support us in our transformations. And you don't need an Edge cohort to do it. You can do it right now. Peer mentoring is that space of, here's the challenge that I'm facing. What best practices, what ideas, what lessons learned, what resources do you have that can help me with this? And then there's peer coaching, where we don't give advice, but we ask thoughtful questions, whereby the coachee gets to generate their own solutions. And what's really important in peer coaching is what Godfrey just outlined so beautifully. It's the follow up. It's, all right, Christy, you said you were going to have this conversation with Kevin. How did it go? Right? It's, you said that you were going to go out there and you were going to, expand the business and start offering programs, direct to people instead of just through organizations. What's your first step in it? And by when do you want to take it? That accountability is such an important part of coaching. All right. We are just about out of time. Last question, Godfrey, my friend, before you head on your way. If you could share one piece of advice around your personal transformation journey, one lesson learned, one success, what's one thing that our listeners out there that if they could take away, they could apply in their transformation, what would you tell them?
I would the power of leaning into others. I again I'm very introvert, but I realized what that meant is not the fact of being able to interact with others. It's more about myself processing. So for me, I've always tried to figure solutions out on my own, but through this program, we talking about peer coaching and mentoring, is asking questions, with leaders of others and building your network around others. Because what I've learned and what helped me through this process to get where I am today really was more about self promotion, right? And everyone saw in me what I feel about myself, but was never able to express about myself. But I was able to do so by all the coaches that were around me, the mentors, the sponsors that said you got what it takes. You just got to believe in it. So when I stopped asking the questions about how do I qualify for this position, and trying to show my qualifications, what I've done was showed my value that I'm adding to the organization. I stood up multiple employee resource groups at the organization. We started up Men Leading Inclusively as a response of out of this program. That was our pay it
Yeah,
forward,
you sure did.
and we were integral in forming that program. And when I was able to say, was able to cultivate or transform the culture of an organization by participation, reduced turnover, better engagement. People were asking, how did you do that? I want you on my team to do that. And that's different from saying, well, I qualify, I meet the qualifications. It's a different language. And that's what I've learned. That's what I've taken away from it. And I believe that's breaking barriers is not accepting someone to say no, you don't have it, it's not your time. If it's not my time there, it's my time somewhere else.
Yes.
And my time has come. And I just had to rely on faith and keep going out there and know that my experiences were for a reason. Everything that was built up was for a reason, and the opportunity that I obtained was not something that I was even within reach. But I'm owning it now. I'm living it.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And that's it, folks. That's what I will say to you. In the words of Godfrey, self-promotion. It is something that as leaders, we often shy away from. But when we are in alignment with our purpose, when we are in alignment, when we are grounded in our confidence, when we know the value that we can provide and we see the opportunities for that value, that's where the magic happens. All right, my friends, our time is up. I leave you with this. Today, now more than ever before, we need to challenge the status quo at work, at home, and inside of our own heads. Until next month, I will see you soon. Please drop a note in the comments. Let Godfrey know what of his story really resonated with you, and I will see you all in a month. So long, my friends. Thanks for joining us.